Yep, we're live. Okay, perfect. Well, hi everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today on this live chat about the Ouwehand Zoo polar bear cams. We're really excited. This is a really neat opportunity right now because Polar Bears International is in Anchorage, Alaska right now. This is great. This is the first time I've ever been to Alaska. So there's the International Bear Association conference going on, and in Anchorage right now there are hundreds of bear biologists from all over the world with all the different bear species, the 8 different bear species. So of course this week there's a lot of polar bear stuff going on. We're seeing a lot of great talks and seeing a lot of great people. And while we come here to listen to the new information and share data and all that stuff, it's really also largely a social event where we all get to see each other and see some faces whose only names we've ever read. There's a lot of people I've been reading their research for years, and I just got to meet them, so it's been very exciting. And so we had to take this opportunity to do this live chat in person because we also have a very special guest, José from the Ouwehand Zoo. So thank you so much for joining us today. Maybe you could start by telling the audience what your role is, maybe also at IAZA and then at the zoo too.
Well, nice to be here. Thank you very much for this. Thank you very much, Alysa. I'm from Ouwehand Zoo in the Netherlands, and I'm a biologist. And since a couple of months, I'm managing the animal department, and my role is to combine it further with research and education. I have another role within IAZA, within the European Zoo community, and because I'm the Bear Tech chair. So I deal with polar bears, brown bears, well, all the 8 species, in fact.
That's excellent. Well, we already have questions rolling in, but let's start with everyone's top question. Are the cams getting turned back on? And they are. So we actually have been waiting to turn the cams back on until we could do this chat. So, I mean, things have been... the bears have been doing great behind the scenes, and now everyone's going to get a chance to see them on camera again. And so they'll be going on pretty soon after this broadcast, as far as I know. So we're excited, and I know you guys are excited for that. And so I guess let's start with how are all the bears doing? You have a lot there. How are the cubs and Freedom and Huggies, and how have they been lately?
Well, the bears are doing fine.
Yes, great.
Yes. After the matings, we separated the male and Huggies, so Felix and Huggies. And Huggies we introduced shortly after that to Freedom and the cubs. Okay. We can do that because Huggies is the mother of Freedom, and right. We know that they can get along quite well. And even when one of them has cubs, we can put them together. So they were in the large area, tundra-like area where you have the cameras on. Then Felix was the big male, and we had him on the other side. We have another enclosure there, which consists of 2 compartments, and it is more an old style enclosure with water, concrete, but also a lot of sand. So we had to separate them. Because, well, after mating, the females do not want to be very close to the male anymore.
Right, when it's all over, then they're done. Yeah, and so let's talk about that. So one of the reasons we turned the cam off is because this was really the first time, I think, that maybe polar bear mating, captive polar bear mating, or just polar bear mating in general has been captured live. And it, to the average person who doesn't watch mating behavior, let alone of bears, it could look really terrible. Like, it just looked very intense. But in reality, all the professionals we talked to, including at your zoo, and we talked to others, that was pretty standard for course. And so maybe you could tell us a little bit about what polar bear breeding is generally like and what they're used to as bears, what they know it to be.
Well, it is standard, but it's always exciting. Yeah. So what we do when we introduce a male and a female, we always observe them closely. We know what we can anticipate on, but it is always, well, as I said, exciting. Then what we had here, Huggies is a female from the wild. And she had 3 litters in our zoo before, so she's quite experienced. And then she had these litters with a former male. Okay. So that male went to Yorkshire Park.
That's Victor?
And that's Victor,
right.
Okay. Yes. You've seen them on the camera
yes.
as well.
Yeah.
And then we got this new male. And bears have their characteristics. They have their own character. And Felix was a different male than Victor. So for us it was exciting to have a new male together with Huggies. And in what we saw is normal polar bear mating behavior, but I can understand that people get upset because he was really very determined and she wanted to move away and she wouldn't let her. So we were there, and at the moment we thought there were enough matings, we're going to separate them. But what we did, in the indoor enclosure, they were right next to each other and only separated by a mesh.
Okay.
And Felix was on this side, Huggies was on that side, and what we saw is that Huggies was still approaching him.
Oh,
so she wasn't afraid. They were still very curious, but for us it was enough.
Oh, good. And, yeah, he had his shot for a few days, and then okay.
And she too.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. She, the females enjoy it too, so it's part of the cycle. And so, of course, people are wondering, when will we know if Huggies is pregnant?
Well, we observe the behavior of our polar bears, but we are never sure if she is pregnant until we see the cub in the den. So we can see their behavior, and they're getting a little slow, and they really don't want to have the male in the area, and they're not very active. So then we guess that she's pregnant, but we never know for sure once the cub is born.
And that will probably be later this winter, much later this year?
Yeah, probably November, December.
Okay, so we have a few months to wait. So maybe right when we're wrapping up the Churchill polar bear season, we'll have an update on the Ouwehand bears. Yeah, maybe. And so people are also wondering, so there's maybe a few, the male, so Felix is on his way back. Is he back home pretty soon in a couple weeks, you're saying? He's going to...
Well, not back home. He's going to another zoo.
Okay, and he's on a tour. Okay.
Yes, he's on a tour.
Lucky bear.
Yeah. He is now going to another zoo in the Netherlands where they have a new enclosure for polar bears, and he'll be transported on the 27th.
So a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. And that will mean that the other side of the enclosure where he was is now free, so definitely we're going to open all the sluices, and both cubs and Huggies and Freedom can use the whole area.
Oh, that's great. And how long, are there any plans to transport the cubs anywhere in the next year or two?
Well, we always keep them until weaning time, 1.5, 2 years old. Okay. And the EP coordinator is the one who tells us, well, your cubs are going there and there. Okay. And so far we didn't have any recommendation yet, but I think it's going to happen somewhere this year.
Okay. And that coordinator role, so that's someone that kind of oversees the polar bear breeding across Europe and moves the bears around. And is part of that to keep the genetic diversity going?
Yeah, exactly. So he looks at the genetics and he looks at the demographics.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And you were telling me that actually the Ouwehand Zoo has been very successful in producing polar bear cubs that are doing well, especially in context of other European zoos. You've had quite a few successful litters over the years. So you guys definitely know what you're doing, and we're really excited to be working with you on that. And we have I don't know if BJ, if you want to talk for a minute, or maybe we'll just so people know, BJ Kirchhofer is here with Polar Bears International. He's kind of overseeing in the background, and BJ was at Ouwehand Zoo in March, making sure the cameras were going and things were looking good, and so he's been there. So if anyone has questions for BJ, definitely send those in too. He had a very good time from what I hear. So one question that came in, and we had talked about this a bit before we went live, but do the bears in zoos spend less time in their dens when they've had babies because it's not as cold outside? Or how does the maybe denning in captivity differ from the wild?
Well, it is not really dependent on the temperature.
Right.
We have a maternity den, which is a concrete den. It looks like, well, not in the nature, but it has the same sizes. Right. And concrete and then there is another enclosure next to it. And everything is behind a metal wall. So if we close the door, it's dark and there's no sound, like in the wild.
Yes, it's a nice environment for them.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very safe.
So what you can say that from September, October, we open this maternity den, and then in this case, Huggies will go in there and have a sniff and come out again and go in again. And we also provide her with straw, so if she wants to make a bed, she can move it into the maternity den, and there's a lot of things going on there. And then at a certain point, she doesn't come out again. So that means that we lock the door, and she's there for getting her cubs. But you know, the temperature in this den, due to the concrete walls, is always more or less the same.
Nice and cool, probably, which is what they want.
Yeah.
Nice.
And what we didn't forget, of course, is put cameras and microphones.
Yeah. Very cool.
So 15 meters further, there's the service area, and we have the screen there. And as soon as there's a cub born, we will hear it.
Wow.
We will see it. And we can follow the development of the cubs. So in the first 2-3 weeks, they hardly move, but then they start to become mobile, and they go out of this maternity area. And then at a certain point, if they're big enough and mobile enough, they can move, get out into another area where there is a threshold. And we know if they can pass this threshold, then it is about time to let them out. Okay. So it is not really dependent on the temperature, but more, we look at the cubs.
Right. Oh, that must be so exciting. Yeah. The first time you hear that noise in that den, that's very exciting. So you kind of explained this question. So when the mom is in the den, there's no food or no toys, correct? Like it mimics the wild completely, and the females don't eat while they're pregnant and denning. They wait till they're out of the den, and you follow that as well.
Almost all the time sleeping.
Oh, yeah. So no time to eat when you're sleeping all day?
No, and you know, it is amazing because these cubs, they can scream.
Yeah.
And then we see this polar bear curled up like that, and the young here, and they are screaming. Well, once they found the milk, the nipple, they're quiet. But I always wonder how she can keep on sleeping. But she's so quiet, lying there. The purpose is to grow these cubs as fast as possible. You can say it. Yeah. So there is no food, but there is a water. She can get out, and she can.
Which is
she
also
does
really
have
nice at that time.
Also, like in the wild, we think that they are licking snow, so they need water, and she does use it. But no food. She's thick enough, fat enough when she goes in, and then the cubs are suckling and growing, and she will grow thinner, and by the time she gets out, well, then she wants to have some food.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
And mothers and cubs bond very strongly, and so people are asking about Freedom and the cubs curling up and sleeping together and playing together, and we do see that all the time on the cams, and you see that in the zoo. They keep playing throughout. I mean, as long as they're held together. I'm sure, yeah.
Well, sometimes when they grow bigger, the cubs, like now, we can see that Huggies is, you can leave me alone a little.
Yeah, not quite as cute little babies anymore.
Well, they're big now.
Yeah, they do more damage. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
But there's a lot of interaction, yes.
Okay. So, this is an interesting question. And I'm not sure if this is at Ouwehand Zoo, or maybe we can even have one of our other zoo partners weigh in, but this person has heard of a food called polar bear chow, and they're assuming it's a dry, crunchy nutrition like dog food, but kind of wondering if your bears might eat that, or if your bears maybe eat more fish and meat and maybe some fruit, or what can you maybe just talk about, like what you feed them in general?
Yeah.
We're interested. Yeah.
We do not feed a chow.
Okay.
We feed indeed meat, fish mainly. And then we try to mimic the natural diet as well, thinking about bears getting ashore. That means that from July till November they have less access to food.
Right. So
we are also experimenting with doing that in the zoo. So that means that they get less food there in this period, but it doesn't work all the way, every time. Very well with all bears, so we really have to keep a close eye. But it's natural feeding.
Yeah,
we do.
which is
so
great.
Yeah.
Oh, and do they have favorite foods, do you think? Do any of them really prefer something? Or are bears just like food in general? So
Yeah, they like food in general.
Yeah.
But, well, the bears we have now are okay. But I remember we had, well, they eat everything almost. But what I remember, we had 2 polar bears, 2 females. And one of them didn't like the head of the fish.
Okay, that's
she would bite that
Eat
off,
the fish
leave
head.
it, and eat the rest.
Oh, that's so funny.
But these polar bears eat everything.
Okay. And so someone's wondering if the females tend to eat more just before they give birth or before they enter their dens. Do you notice any spike before that indicates they might be pregnant? But maybe mostly after when they come out of the den.
After they come out,
yeah.
definitely there's a spike. Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, not before. No.
And the gestation period for polar bears. So that's an interesting one because they have that delayed implantation, which happens in the zoo as well. So polar bears will mate, but then they're not really officially pregnant for several months later. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We see the same. Well, the mating took place in March this year.
Right.
Normally February, March, and then we get cubs in, well, earliest November.
Okay.
December.
Yeah. And the zygote hasn't actually implanted until maybe about September, October.
Exactly.
So the actual period of pregnancy is pretty short, and that's why they're born so tiny.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But then they grow so quickly
Yeah.
when they're out.
They're very tiny, and the eyes are closed, ears are closed, no hair.
Oh.
But they grow very, very fast.
With that really fatty milk. So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. We also had kind of a wild polar bear question, which I can answer. So someone was wondering, with the loss of multi-year ice and early breakup of new winter ice, so annual ice, are bears getting trapped farther offshore and then having to swim back to land? So we think they are. So we actually just published a paper. I think it came out in April. And you can see that on Polar Bears International website. I was an author on that paper, and we did look at the frequency of swims in the Beaufort Sea, the southern Beaufort Sea. And we did find, using the GPS collar data, that at least the female bears are making long swims more frequently than they were years ago. So we had actually one subadult female bear, so she was about 4 years old. She swam over 400 kilometers in 9 days, and that's a pretty young bear to swim that long. But you can see on the, there's also a blog on PBI's website, but you can see we mapped out some different swim events in Hudson Bay and the Beaufort Sea. And they are having to swim, and some bears will choose different movement patterns, maybe follow the ice, but other ones are giving swimming a go, and polar bears are excellent swimmers. But we do worry about the swims getting longer because it is very energetically costly. But it's an interesting question. We do expect that they will be swimming farther distances more frequently in the coming years if things continue to progress as they are right now. This is also an interesting time of year for any of you that follow our bear tracker, Polar Bears International Bear Tracker. We also have Ursula, of course, is the Explore.org bear who we've been tracking. I just sent an update in today, so that should show up tomorrow. But at this time of year, so breakup is starting to happen at least in Hudson Bay, where our bear tracker looks at. So that means that polar bears are spending more time swimming at this time of year. The ice is just kind of breaking up, and they're getting from flow to flow. And when bears are swimming in the water, the collars tend to maybe go offline for more periods of time as the antennas get a little bit icy. So we do kind of see some off and on movement, but you can see where the bears are right now in the tracker, and then they'll in the next month or two be coming ashore. And so it's a really interesting time of year, that transition. Some bears will choose to come on land as soon as they can because maybe they don't want to ride the ice down. Other bears will swim to shore. Some of the western Hudson Bay polar bears will ride the ice down to southern Hudson Bay and then walk up the coast. And we never really know what they're going to do, but it will be interesting to watch them. So this is an especially neat time of year to watch the polar bears on the tracker and watch the wild bears. So that's pretty neat. Okay, so one question about the captive females again. When a captive female can no longer produce cubs, what happens to her? Anything in particular, or you just keep her anyway? Yeah, it's not. You don't only have her to produce cubs.
Haggis has been with us so many years.
Yeah.
she's just going to stay with us. Probably this is going to be her last litter because her genes are overrepresented in the population. She was so successful in breeding and rearing. So this is probably her last litter, but I cannot imagine saying goodbye to her.
No.
She will stay with us.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, and you must know her so well by now. Is there anything, any personality quirks that she has after you've known her for so long compared to other bears, or what's her temperament like?
You know, Huggies is very inquisitive, but she's also a bear that, how do you say that in English? That can just sit down and relax.
Okay.
Wait until things are getting better.
Okay. She's not very like high strung. She's really
just very relaxed. Looking. Okay, we do it this way.
Okay. That's kind of fun. Oh, well, maybe, BJ, do you want to talk for just a minute about kind of PBI and Explorer's role at the zoo there and keeping the cameras going? I'll switch out for BJ for a second. He's having a bit of a nap. I've ruined it for him.
No!
He comes in here.
I'm not having a nap.
No, I know. I'm just joking.
No, so, yeah, concentrating, for sure. I guess we met first time when I came over with Tim Sears to install the first cameras.
Yes.
Out there, huh?
When was that?
A few years ago. Yeah, when the first cameras first launched on the Explorer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just got to revisit recently in March.
Yeah.
To go tune up the same cameras that Tim and I installed that time ago. I don't know, it must have been 2010 or 11. And there were 12. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was fun to go back and see the bears and kind of check through all the equipment. I guess you guys had done a little bit of maintenance, but I kind of wiped out the cameras and got the spiders out of the domes. And yeah.
Always these spiders.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So it was fun to do.
But you also had a nice talk. You did a nice talk.
Yeah, so the Ouwehand Zoo is also helping sponsor a research project that we're doing in Svalbard, Norway. And we're looking at denning females in the wild there and behavior at the dens. And so these guys, with the help of Yorkshire Wildlife Park and San Diego Zoo and some other places, we're working with the Norwegian Polar Institute as well. And we put cameras on dens in this area of Svalbard and watch the females when they come out and talk about their behavior when they do.
And they did come out.
And they did come out, which was quite fun. And it was fun to go to Ouwehand and share that information. So we watched the bear come out and what she did and when she took off. And it's hopefully something that we're working on getting to the Explore community. Svalbard's a really unique place. Although it is so high in the Arctic, it turns out it's a good place for the satellites to communicate back down to Earth with. So there's really good internet in Svalbard, which of course for all these streaming cameras, that's important. So stay tuned. We're hopefully going to be working on some projects maybe with Explore in the future over there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anything else we should be covering here, Alysa?
I don't think so. I'm going to try to wrap up unless there's anything else you want to say.
Yeah, is there any questions coming in?
Not that I have, but yeah.
Did we stun them?
Yeah, we stun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, DJ.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this was just going to be a shorter live chat, but it was great to have you on camera. Thank you so much for answering these questions today. I know people are just so in love with the bears, and they'll be so excited to see them this summer, and me as well. And we are probably going to try to do a bit more of the kind of behavior interpretation because we realize that that's such an interesting area that people want to hear about, especially in captivity. There's a lot we can learn from captive animals, especially the polar bears. And so we'll try to be following up more frequently with maybe some kind of what's going on, maybe some live chats with some behavioral people and keep you guys in the loop. And we really look forward to watching the bears and seeing if Huggies is pregnant come the winter So it will be very exciting. But we need to get back to the conference because all afternoon there's a bunch of polar bear talks. We're talking about polar bear toxicology and then captive fields synergy work and how to inform wild polar bear conservation by using captive zoo polar bears kind of as models. And it's some really, really amazing stuff and some cool people here. So we, well, thank you so much, explore.org. I'm Alysa McCall, and this is José from Ouwehand Zoo, and this is the first time we've ever met in person, so it's really nice. We've been on email all the time, and it was great to finally say hello.
It's nice to have the face.
It is, yes, absolutely. And keep an eye on that bear tracker. Well, I owe you guys a short Ursula blog coming up to see what she's been up to, but it's going to be really interesting next month or two as the wild polar bears make their way back to land for the summer. And, of course, with anyone who likes to watch the Beluga Cam, we'll be going live on the Beluga Cam in mid-July from Churchill, and so we're in the works for that. We've got Captain Haley Shepherd coming back, and we're really excited as we get that season rolling too. And of course, I'm sure we'll see a polar bear or two during Beluga season. So, so thank you so much, everybody. And any questions that come in kind of at the end, I'm happy to kind of send those answers back to Explore in the next couple of days so people get everything answered. And then the comment section will be opened up on the Ouwehand Cam again, and we'll be monitoring it. So great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this Tuesday afternoon, and we will talk to you all later.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.